Now, this is the video of the private army Wagner leaving a city that they had occupied in Russia, and much to the ululation, to the screaming, and to the salutations of the Russian public. Our viewers, witnesses, it's a very good morning to you. It's a Sunday morning. It is 7 a.m. Right in the United Kingdom. I don't know what time it is where you are. Just type it in the comment box right there. And with this is an uproar, the first of its kind, perhaps in the entire history of Russia. The Russian president literally getting a threat from an army that also he created, or he helped to create. Joining us this morning is our analyst from a Christian religious perspective, our NYONI. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Simba, and good morning to the viewers.
Well, thank you very much. You know, just as we are seeing this video, and I'm just going to try and keep playing it so that while we're talking, you know, it will be in the background. Talk us in to what you see, what you're telling us in your article this morning.
When you look at this gentleman called Prigozhin,
yes,
Prigozhin, the mercenary. I call him a mercenary because that Wagner group is a group of mercenaries. This is the group which was propping people like Mnangagwa. So every time Zimbabwe went for an election, these guys, Prigozhin, vanenge vari kuCentral Africa Republic, vakamirira kuona what is going to happen after an election in Harare, because their job is to loot gold, diamonds, zvinhu zvese zvingave expensive in Africa. So now when I see what is happening in Ukraine, there is hope for our country, Zimbabwe, because where Ukraine has placed a Wagner group, it just shows that Russia is not winning the war. Russia haisi kuwina. Saka Prigozhin kubva kwaaita ku-Ukraine war front achitizira ku-Belarus, it reminds us of the issue yaMnangagwa 2017, 2016, when the military coup happened in Zimbabwe, kuti Mnangagwa akatiza wakaenda kupi ku-South Africa. So the same setup is happening, unfolding in Russia. Whether Prigozhin is going to take over or a deal has been stuck, but we see the similarities between Mnangagwa and Prigozhin.
Would you not like to I'm going to ask you here to start off right from the beginning. The disclosures by the war veterans, Mr. NYONI, the war veterans in Harare, including Karen Kazingizi and several others. We're talking here the entire grouping of the war veterans. There's one thing, I don't know if you had noticed there, that you might have possibly excluded from your analysis. What they say is that Emmerson Mnangagwa is in fact originally a Prigozhin type of an individual, a trained Prigozhin. Now, I'm not talking from the 2017 era. What they say is that he was trained by the Rhodesians to kill and destroy. I don't know if you had looked at that. What I'm saying is, you see, the decoration that people have seen, have observed over the decades, that has been claimed that Mnangagwa was trained in Russia, trained in China, and all sorts, that he was a liberation fighter, is totally falsified, including the claim, especially the claim that he bombed a train. Because per his own words, he never bombed anything. Even the conviction had nothing to do with bombing anything or exploding anything. Now, what the war veterans have disclosed in recent years, in the last 3 years here, pointedly, is that Mnangagwa was in fact a trained mercenary in Rhodesia, who the Rhodesians conveniently portrayed as if he is a victim of Rhodesia for the agenda of infiltrating the liberation fighters, and then taking back and destroying everything that the war veterans, the liberators, had fought for during the struggle. So
Okay.
I'm just looking at it, and I'm actually using the exact phrase by the war veterans here, that
So
Mnangagwa is in the class of Philip Shangwa. He is a mercenary akatrainwa na Ian Smith. Wa Ian Smith no mashoko ana avana Karen Kazingi's wow. And Mnangagwa has never denied that he is in fact a Rhodesian mercenary, someone who never fired a bullet during the liberation struggle, and was only smuggled to Zambia, from Zambia to Mozambique, to seize the struggle, so that everything that the war veterans fought for, or the liberators fought for, would be destroyed. And that is what we have seen, beginning with Gukurahundi, yeah, and all these other crackdowns that have happened over the time, and including the one that you have mentioned, the one in 2017. So I'm trying to follow your line there, that Mnangagwa is in fact a trained Prigozhin, not just someone who wanted to take
okay.
over from Robert Mugabe in 2017, but someone who has actually been doing it. Remember, Grace talked about it. Paakataura kuti uyu aida kuita coup in 1980. Right in 1980, soon after the elections in 1980, Emerson Mnangagwa wanted to do a coup on the president. So practically, he is a Rhodesian trained mercenary. He's a Prigozhin of decades in Rhodesia, Zimbabwe. So I'm just following your line there. Let me hear you.
Okay. Let us define or identify who Prigozhin is. His position with Chi. Prigozhin is just a cook, chief cook one wa Putin. He was not even in the army. Munango Bikira Putin as a cook. So now, when we look at the history of Mnangagwa being accused of not fighting the war by the war veterans, and analyzing his background as comparing him with Prigozhin, we see the same traits, that Prigozhin is nothing to Putin as Mnangagwa was nothing to ZANU-PF and Mugabe. So now the issue we are looking at is, how does someone come from being nothing to leading a nation as Zimbabwe? Then that shows us that even Prigozhin as a cook can leave the kitchen and end up being the leader of the Kremlin. If we are to make comparisons between the two, and we look at the backgrounds of what they went through, or what Mnangagwa went through, and what Prigozhin is going through. Right now, as we are talking, and it is Belarus. The same thing we heard about Mnangagwa and South Africa. And there seems to be
Yes.
eh,
Continue, please.
there seems to be an issue with the Kremlin.
I was saying
Eh? Hello? I say there seems to be an issue with the Kremlin protecting Prigozhin, as we saw ZANU-PF and the army protecting Mnangagwa, though they portrayed an image that there was an in-house fighting. Mnangagwa, ZANU-PF, and Mugabe, they cooked a deal kuti Mnangagwa aite take over. That is what we might be seeing in Russia. The Kremlin, the commanders of the Russian army, they can be pretending kuti vari kurwisana nani na Prigozhin as a way of hoodwinking Putin.
You think
Hello.
so? In my view, in my view, in my view, Mr. Nyoni, from what I'm seeing here, I'm going to be frank. From what seems, and I'm going to ask you, don't you think that Prigozhin has practically lost it now? I mean, going to Belarus, he's going to be a potential challenger to even Lukashenko. Lukashenko is not going to be comfortable having a mercenary with 25,000 armies, yeah, an army of 25,000 people. That's he can could easily practically take over even Belarus itself. I'm saying here, don't you think that ajigira munhu uyu atoita hugwara? And look, Putin is not going to take this lying low. Putin is definitely going to pursue him. Putin still have so much state power. He has got the ability to outmaneuver. And Prigozhin now, even his own army now, are going to feel that he has betrayed them by not taking charge, going head on against Putin.
Okay, what I see in this issue, Siba, is that the real issues are not disclosed. What we are seeing is not what is happening. But now let's go back to Mnangagwa leaving Zimbabwe for so-called Mozambique and then finally South Africa. When you look at Mnangagwa, the period he left Zimbabwe, it could have seemed as if it was over for him, did it? Could the only
Yes, it was.
the only person who would take over, in as far as Mnangagwa was concerned, it was game over. Are we not seeing the same trend repeating with Prigozhin? If we have to look at the background of what is happening in Russia, in Ukraine, and in the Kremlin. Because you see, one of the things with the Kremlin and the ZANU-PF is that the similarities are even people who don't agree with Putin and Mnangagwa and Mugabe, they seem to be supporting them because so in this case, when Prigozhin is going to Belarus, arikuyenda because ndo kune safety yake. And by the way, ku Belarus, Lukashenko uyu ku Belarus uyu, he will be very happy to see the back of Putin. And meaning, if Lukashenko has to survive as a leader of Belarus, he has to play with the West. I don't know if you get my point. Because right now, the people who vanhu vachatungamirira nyika, kana chiti nyika handisi kutaura America kana kuti Britain kana kuti Africa, ndiri kutaura the whole world overall, vanhu vari armed. So now we have two blocks, the Russian bloc and the Western bloc, or the Soviet bloc and the Western bloc. So now, as things seem to unfold, what we are having is Russia is losing. And since Russia is losing, Belarus, for it to survive, it has to play to the tune of the West. There is no way Prigozhin and Lukashenko are going to survive if they don't toe the line of the West. I don't know if you get my point.
Yeah, even though I think, in my view, you may, and I will ask you, don't you think you may be going into the area of suppositions and propositions
Why
rather than
suppositions can help us. Let us look at the background of the whole issue, and
right?
The issue is that there is a war started by Russia in Ukraine, and Russia is losing the war. And Russia is not losing the war to Ukraine. Russia is losing the war to the West. NATO, G28. Meaning, if Russia loses, Belarus has no choice but to join the West. So where does Prigozhin? He is forced to join the Western way of doing things. Hello?
Okay, right. And tell me about Putin here, because
Uh,
the analysis that we're seeing in the article here portrays Putin as someone who is weak, and in this case, the the march towards Moscow, the
uh,
drive towards Moscow, was totally bloodless. It was effortless,
yeah,
compared to the march towards Kiev by the same army. And
yes.
and the other person here, the last person here, is meant to be the most powerful despot, the most powerful president in the world. And my question to you is, where does this place the geopolitics? Is Putin weaker or stronger after this? Because you see, just yesterday, just as things were unfolding,
Uh,
yeah, missile strikes intensified against Kiev.
uh,
Yeah, they actually intensified. So
okay,
Putin now is having to flex his muscles. He has to overcompensate. He has to overprove himself that he is powerful. So,
okay,
uh, does this not leave Putin more, in a more restless state? And practically here, I'm just going to say, uh, perhaps more vicious state. I wanted to use the word more powerful, the term more powerful, but I'll say more vicious and brutal state.
okay. When you look at the ZANU-PF and you look at the Kremlin, what are the similarities? Within the Kremlin, even the high command, army commanders, among themselves, there are some who are supporting Putin and there are some who are against him, if you care to know. And then when you look at ZANU-PF, in ZANU-PF, it manifested itself as G40 and the Mujuru, Mugabe factions. But now, what I'm trying to say is, when you see missiles raining from Russia now, there is a faction right now which knows that once Putin is gone, high rank faction, once Putin is gone, they are gone. And there are others within the same ranks who know that in the same Kremlin, who know that once Putin is gone, they are okay. So now, my point being that hazvirevi kuti kurwisana kuri kuita Ukraine neRussia kwabva kwatota endorse success yeUkraine. MuRussia imomo mune vanhu vari kutoda kutorwa to the last atom of their breath, because they know that losing that war, they are finished. So on the same vein, havazofi vakabvumira kuti Ukraine win, but all the same, they cannot defeat the West. Meaning, G40 in Harare, in ZANU-PF, haifi yanga iri armed, yanga icharwisana nani naMnangagwa nemasoja ake kusvika patova newina. My point being that kana tichinzwa kuchinzi iye zvino Putin achiri kurwisana neUkraine, havasi vese vari muKremlin vari kumusapota, but vari kutopretenda kunge vari kumusapota vanenge vachitomutya. Ndo pane nyaya. As we know that right now, it's not everyone who is within ZANU-PF who is supporting Mnangagwa, but some of them are afraid of being eliminated. So they pretend to be supporting the vision of Mnangagwa, whereas they are against him. Because they know that by just exposing themselves, zvikuitwa naMnangagwa zviti, they will be involved in an accident. So in Russia, vanodonha mumabuildings, high buildings. Ndo pane nyaya yasimba.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Nyoni. Here, quickly, just a few takeaways here. Mnangagwa is a mercenary in the league of Prigozhin. Someone who, but in fact, as far back as 1980, wanted to do what Prigozhin has done on Harare, practically, physically.
Yeah.
And this is revealed in the disclosures by Grace Mugabe, the factual disclosures. Some people thought that was mere opinion when Grace Mugabe said that he wanted to do a coup on the president. And then, what was it? Is it Michelle or is it Nyerere who said, look, go back home, Robert. Okay, so Mnangagwa is a Rhodesian mercenary, and he has failed to deny that he is a mere Rhodesian mercenary who was arrested conveniently. He was arrested. Mnangagwa was arrested conveniently. He was arrested, conveniently prosecuted by the Rhodesian regime in order to promote him so that he could take over from the real liberators of the country.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Munu, who is a trained, and by the way, Mr. Nyon, do you know how close I have been to these developments? Can I shock you? I received the handover notes from Mnangagwa's British Rhodesian handler.
Mm-hmm.
The man, one of the people who trained him by the name Dan Stannard, the one who is said to have saved Prince Charles, King Charles, who died just 3 months ago. He gave me the handover notes, personally handed them to me since 2011. And he told me quite chunks, even invited me to his home. But that's besides the question. I would rather quote, and while quoting other people, which is maybe safer, so that, we get here detail. Grace Mugabe talked about it. He's a trained Rhodesian mercenary. So when he says, I was trained to kill and destroy, what is he talking about? He wasn't trained by the Russians, he wasn't trained by the Chinese. He was never part of them. He was a Rhodesian mercenary. And Karen Kazingizi says he's in the league of Philip Chiangwa. And then quickly, and then let's go in here. You're drawing the parallel between Mnangagwa, what he did on Robert Mugabe, and that was in 2017, taking over power using the army, going out of the country. Personally speaking, as we said today, I personally feel like Prigozhin, this is his end. I feel that Putin is not going to take this low. He's definitely going to charge back. But but then what I also wanted to summarize around this, Mr. Nyoni, was how you drew a parallel between how Robert Mugabe created an army. He gave powers to the army the same way Putin gave power to the Wagner, and now the Wagner are the stab in the back. Yeah, please maybe give us your closing remarks. We've got a few people coming in who want to speak, but let's just have your closing remarks, sir.
Okay, my closing remarks are that the end, assuming this is an assumption. Okay, let me just go back maybe a year ago. I shot a video where I said Putin was on the run. Oh, backlash yashanga yakaoma. You see, one of the things about our people, Zimbabweans, is that ati read things, we are very slow readers of situations. So now when I said Putin was on the run, it was based on what exactly is happening now. What he had started in Russia and Ukraine, he would not end it. That was my point. So now when you look at what is happening in Ukraine now.
And I remember when you were saying it, that time I wasn't believing you. When you were saying that time, I said, Like,
Yeah.
3 months ago, I think. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if you remember that when I told I've got
I
a
do
video on
remember you actually did several videos around it, and I said, "What's this man on about? What's
yes.
his? Why does he think Putin is gonna have a challenge? Is gonna have an end on this?" Yeah.
Mighty as Putin looked at that time, and I said to the people of Zimbabwe, Putin is on the run. And when was this issue of him being wanted by the HICC released? 3 months ago, 4 months ago.
Yes.
Yoku Hege, and in our wildest dreams, Takavata, who would dream of Putin summoned to be arrested by the West, so-called? What I mean, we call the ICC the West, and whoever
That's
thought
right.
that.
Well, generally, that's what they claim. But the ICC, even Russia itself, has participated.
Yes,
Yeah,
it is.
even
But
Russia
now
itself participated. Yeah.
we conclude by saying, no, this is a Western project, and
Well, that's what they claim. Yes.
yeah, but especially our African people, the anti-West sentiments, we say the court is a Western project. That's why it couldn't arrest George Bush and Tony Blair, and
Generally, yeah, that's what they say. Yeah. Even though
yeah, so,
ICC statutes are very clear that it does not, cannot prosecute someone like Blair because the crime was actually done by Parliament, by a group called Parliament of United Kingdom. So yeah, continue, please.
but Putin on the same hand can say my decision was done by the Kremlin, which is the parliament of Russia.
Yeah, of course. Then maybe he can get away with it, but maybe
Yeah.
they've got evidence that it's got nothing to do with the parliament. Maybe they've got evidence that this is only Putin
Okay.
himself as an individual. But just go ahead. Yeah.
Those guys call him a lawyer, but my point being that whoever thought that Putin's warrant of arrest could be issued, powerful as we thought he was with his nuclear threats. So what I'm just trying to put across is when I released the video, Putin is on the run, and I was taken to be a lunatic, I knew exactly what was happening. At the end of the day, Putin ndo vachamumukira. And now where it is going, where it is heading now, I put a parallel on Zimbabwe again. Kuti, assuming Putin is no more, is dethroned, that will mean the end of ZANU-PF as a party. You know why? ZANU-PF is being probed by the Kremlin. Anoona ndege dzinotengeswa madiamonds naMnangagwa nevana vake nomukadzi wake dzinobva kuBelarus, and Belarus yatomumukira, meaning that Belarus is now going to be dancing the Western tune, and Mnangagwa stands to lose everything he invested in Belarus. If Belarus turns against Putin, a thing which I see happening. Why Belarus president will not risk losing power by supporting Putin, because he knows that Putin is finished. So the West, when you look at China, we look at India, you look at Iran, you look at those countries, they would have been happy if Russia had won in Ukraine, meaning China was going to attack Taiwan. China was going to take over Africa. But now, the lesson they are seeing with you don't mess around with America and win. The parallels being Putin kuruza kwake, kuruza kwe ZANU-PF, nema dictators ese emu Africa. And I still maintain a position. Maybe even after a week or two, we might be having a new leader in Russia. This is not prophecy. Please, this is just my what? My way of looking at things. Azvinei kuita nechiprofita kana kuti zvinhu zvichaitika kana kuti zvine pin number iri certain kuti zvichaitika. Kungoasumawo ngoona zvinhu zvingangoitika, a possibility kuti ndinoona sokunge Putin nyaya yake yatopera, ndo maonero angu.
Wow, Mr. Nyoni, thank you very much for your closing remarks. Could we spend the next 2 minutes as we shut just to hear from people here? We've got a gentleman called Apocalyptic. Shoot, please. Apocalyptic.
Morning, Simba. Yeah, guys, the gentleman out is Russia. Putin is a very important man globally. I wouldn't be surprised China coming through. America is finished. It's only a matter of time. We need a multipolar world. And Putin is a very important person for Africa as a whole. I don't care about their internal politics or their politics with America, but China and Russia are these guys are very important for Africa. Not Africa, progress. Look at what the French are doing in the Sahel region. They want to keep us poor. And these guys who are Putin, they are very important for balance of power. China is a very important trading partner of Africa. And if you look at their history, they don't have the ambitions to colonize anyone. I know we are afraid, but I think our guys, we need to be, as Africans, we need to have our interests at heart. And Putin is a distraction to the West. And long may the war in Ukraine continue, because this will keep the West distracted. And we don't want their wars to keep coming to Africa. Saka, the way I see it, the fall of Putin is very dangerous for the world. And to say that just because Putin has fallen, China, look at the GDP of China right now, 17 trillion. And look at the GDP of America, $23 trillion. And America is in a lot of debt. It's in a mess. And everyone is dumping the US dollar. So you can't tell me that America can face China. That's impossible. That's very impossible. We have to embrace the new world order, which is led by China. And the sooner you do that, the better. And I know that a lot of people are still in denial. But the fall of Putin, I know right now Wagner group is now, they've got an upper hand because the Americans are hyper. And I wouldn't be surprised if they start giving them weapons through the back door. We will see the Wagner group coming back. That's a possibility. And Putin can fall, yes. But do you think Wagner group is better than Putin? No, they are not. They are worse than Putin. Look at what they are doing in Africa. Look at what they are doing in Ukraine. They're brutal. They are power hungry. You will celebrate Ningi, a group, those people are criminals, Russian criminals, which were let out of jails. You can't celebrate that at a global stage. That's ridiculous. You know, you can't have a game of criminals running a country like Russia. That's very dangerous for the whole world, and especially for Africa. What are they going to do in Africa? They are mining our minerals there, and they don't care about pollution or the environment, biodiversity. They are very dangerous people. I think with that, Simba, I learned there. But guys, I am an advocate of democracy. I love CC and all these, democratic parties. But when it comes to our interests on a global stage, we need to know where where our interest lies. Our interests are not, are not supported by the West. We know that. So we need to look out for our own interests first. On a global stage, let's just make sure that these guys, their power is in check. Power corrupts. You can't have America running the world on its own. That's dangerous as well. We need a balance. So that to know that these guys like Putin to be on the global stage. Yeah, thank you.
Simba, can I just share something and maybe answer, ask a question from
Sorry, hold on, Mr. Nyoni. Mr. Nyoni, you wanted to chip in. We also have another caller. Let's maybe get the caller, the second caller in, and then move up here. Is that okay?
All right, okay.
Thank you. Brown, can I give you 45 seconds to shoot?
Yes, yeah, 45 seconds. Maybe you can bring that other person in.
Okay, okay. Give us 1.5 minutes. Shoot, give us 1.5 minutes.
All right. Okay. So, I mean, from the previous caller, I think negative feedback there.
Yes, I apologize. Go ahead, please.
Yeah. So, they talk. Somebody was talking. The Russians, they are looking up for the Russian people. They are never looking up for African people. They're just using the Africans as a proxy. Do you know the biggest trading partner of China is the United States of America? It has nothing to do with Africa at all. Africa is just a place that they can pull resources. Or they give away. And they can make processed brands in America. They make their products in China because of cheap what do you call it? Cheap like resources that they have to make this product. But where are the resources coming from? From China, from Africa. So don't think that if you then you think that China is on your side or Russia is on your side. No, it has nothing to do with you. It has only to do with what they think is important to them. So, what do we have here? We have China or Russia who is going to come in and say, see no evil, hear no evil, and take whatever they can. Then we have the West that is going to say, do something that we think is right. If we don't do that, we are not going to do this. Then you think that the Westerns are the enemy, but the Eastern guys, China and all those kind of things, they are right. To tell you the truth, nobody there is on your side. They are on their side. It's all about resources and who has the upper hand as far as the resources are concerned. So for you to be joining the Russians, what are they even giving you as far as the Russians are concerned? You only talk about the history because they supported us in the liberation struggle. What are they giving you right now? Absolutely not. When you talk about the Chinese, what are they giving you now? When they come here, their deal is a 30-70 ratio. You get 30%, they get 70%. So, because they are not going to be worried about somebody killing them, their own people, then a despotic government is going to say they are our friends. But even in that scenario, they are still moving their own narrative as far as what is important to them. So what is it all about? It's all about you as a government, you as a people, to start thinking about yourself and saying, these are the resources that we have. Now, let's try by all means to make sure that the little money that we have is going to cater for our people. Not that we can spend extravagant. We can buy all these Miami version kind of houses, build all those kind of things in our country, ourselves. And the rest of the populace is poor. And then you can just come up and say that America is wrong, is culprit. No, we cannot do that. Mr. Failure, from your name, failure is you to accept that these people, they are good for us. They are never good for us. They're good for themselves. Like I said before, foreign policy is all about what is good for you, not for the other side. So if you think that China is going to be a fight for you, you are on the wrong side, brother. That's nonsense. They are always going to be on their side. What benefits them is what they're going to move. And I told you, it's always this.
Hello, Simba. Hello. I don't know if I can be heard. So, nyaya iri panapa ndeyekuti, when we say Russia,
America is a trading partner. How much?
So sorry. I think we're talking over each other. Just hold on. Oh dear, I think there's a mistake there.
Of 1.4 billion.
Maybe just hold on, Mr. NYONI. Just hold on.
And a continent of 54 countries. This is done deliberately to keep us poor. And if you look at our trading with China, no matter how much you want to bash China and say, yes, every country, China is not there to spoon feed you. They are there for their own interests, my friend. They are doing business. They are not going to treat you with kid gloves. You are not part of China. They are doing it for their own people. And they are trading between us, the trade between us and China, $260 billion. And they are saying in 5 years, it's going to be $300 billion. Talking about saying that China is not an important country for Africa. You are out of your mind. As a person. No, I am not saying it's not important. Wait, I haven't finished. Let me land. Wait, let me land. America, I didn't interrupt you. Let me finish. Be a gentleman. I didn't interrupt you. And you are there saying that China is not important for us. That's ridiculous. You have to be practical. Yeah, I have to interject. When you are saying it's not important for us, I didn't say that. I'm saying no one is there for us. They are there for themselves.
Right. So, gents, let me interrupt straight away here, and let's have Mr. NYONI respond, because he has been quiet all this while. Thank you, Mr. NYONI.
Okay.
Yeah, can you please shoot? Can you please shoot? Because I noticed you have been. Yeah, thank you.
We are debating on a wrong premise. The issue we are facing here, we are facing a war being fought in Ukraine and a Prigozhin rising up and looking at the similarities between Prigozhin and Mnangagwa. So now, for us to say Ukraine, Russia are fighting, then it's good for the Africans. It's not the issue. The issue is there is a war. Someone is winning, someone is losing. Now, when you look at the issue we are putting in, the issue of China, the issue of Russia, how many people today in Zimbabwe, we know the way we are suffering in Zimbabwe, who want to take a visa to go to China and look for a job, or to go to Russia to look for a job. We want to go to the West. And are we saying the West, they are angels? No. But there are things we get from the West which sustain us as a people. Hakuna izvo zvino tikaenda kuHarare, tikaenda kuBulawayo, tikaenda kuSouth Africa, tikaenda kuZambia, munhu weshe, munhu mutema ari kuda kutsvaga basa, ari kuda kuya kuwest kuzotsvaga basa. Havasi kuenda kuRussia yatinoti iri useful to us. Who wants to go to Russia to look for a job? My point being that when we say the West and Russia are fighting, we are not saying we are supporting the West. We are not saying we are supporting Russia. We are looking at the reality of the war. There is a war which is being fought. And we have to look at the results. Kuti Prigozhin achawina here kana kuti acharuza. Kuwina kwaPrigozhin hakusi kureva kuti tiri kumusapota. Kana kuti kuruza kwaPutin hakusi kureva kuti tinomuvenga. Or if the West wins, it doesn't mean that we Africans, we support the West. We are looking at reality. And the reality is that among the two, the West and the Russia, who is of more benefit to the African peasant? When we were colonized by the West, vakativakira chi? Mahospitari, migwagwa, Parere Nyatwa hospitari, Mpilo hospitari, vakaisa tara, vakaisa zvinhu zvese. Asi vanga vakati oppressor, but we had the basics. What did we get from Russia? What are we getting from the Chinese? Nothing. So now, when we debate on the issues of what we get from who we support, is different from who the wars being fought between those people we are supporting and those we are not supporting. Kana Russia ichiruza kuwest, hazvisi kureva kuti isusu vanhu vatema, because Russia tinoida tine zvatinogona kuita. Russia iri kuruza, they are losing. The bottom line being that we are looking at the war in Ukraine and we are looking at these results. Whether Ukraine is winning, Prigozhin is winning, Putin is losing, that is not a statement to say black people must support Putin. Tiringotarisa results ehondo kuti Putin ari kuruza. Good or bad for the black person, that's not the issue. We are analyzing the war in Ukraine. Russia is losing the war. Whether we like it or not, Russia is losing. That's the issue.
Wow. Here we are, folks. What do you say, Zimbabweans in the nations around the world? This is a discussion around Prigozhin, Putin, and Emmerson Mnangagwa. What is going on here? Why is this parallel being drawn? This parallel is being drawn because of numerous disclosures in the country that portray Emmerson Mnangagwa as the first ever Prigozhin okay, from the Cold War. Hold on. Let me just finish. This. The discussion early this morning, it comes from that backdrop of the portrayal of Emerson Mnangagwa, numerous disclosures in and outside of Zimbabwe by notable individuals, from the war veterans, even to the intelligence between the British and Zimbabwean intelligence. We're talking here the very individuals who trained Emerson Mnangagwa. One of them, Dan Stannard, who I personally had interactions with. So that Emerson Mnangagwa is, in fact, the first ever Prigozhin. History's first ever Prigozhin of our time, a man who was trained by the Rhodesians and British Rhodesians for the purpose of destroying everything that the war veterans, that the liberators of Zimbabwe had fought for. And per even Robert Mugabe and his wife's disclosures, by 1980, he was already planning to run over Zimbabwe, literally, and take over it on behalf of the Rhodesian British mafia that had trained him. And per his own admissions as well, he never bombed anything. He never exploded anything, contrary to what he had been talking about, claiming for more than 40 years that he bombed a train. And per also the court records, he never was convicted of any bombing. And this is documented detail. And furthermore to that, Emerson Mnangagwa was never a crocodile gang leader at any time in his life. And he even states so. I mean, look, contrary to what he has been claiming since 1980, that he was a crocodile gang leader. But quickly, why is this being talked about? This is being talked about because of how practical it seems to be in Zimbabwean eyes, that the unfolding events in Russia are a replica of what has been happening in Zimbabwe since 1980. So maybe in this headline should also be Grace Mugabe making all this disclosure. Mnangagwa is the first Prigozhin. He wanted to kill the president, as she said there, in 1980, and told the president to go to Mozambique. Right. Failure, you wanted to say something. This was just a summary of what is going on, why this discussion is being held. Shoot.
No, first of all, I'll correct the previous speaker, Taroti, West Yakatiwakira, roads and all this. Listen, China has built up to today 10,000 kilometers of roads across Africa.
Isn't that a shame? Shouldn't we be ashamed kugadzirwa road yekuti ione takabuda panze apo tona kugadzira tega?
Let me finish Simba. Haisi kuti gadzira maroads. We are being paid. We are being compensated for our resources. They are not just government here. Zimbabwe is the one that's failing. ED is a failure, a total failure. That's why you cannot talk about ED and Putin in the same breath, because when Putin, they are very patriotic. They love their countries. When ED, they're individualistic in their outlook. That's the difference between these guys, Nima Chinese, Nima Russians. And if you look what's happening across Africa, airports are being built, new airports in different countries. Isuzu, our trading between Zimbabwe and China for last year was $2 billion. What did we do with it? Nothing. Most of the money is being stolen. So, Rana ED, they are not patriotic at all compared to these guys, Rana Putin. That's why I have a strange relationship with guys like Putin. I love Putin. I love him. And he needs, if the global south and the guy at and America, China's biggest trading partner is America. That's a lie. China's the biggest trading partner right now is the global south, Asia and Africa. That's China's biggest trading partner. Don't listen to propaganda and lies. China and Africa is now the fastest growing economy in the world right now. Go and check my figures. But is it working for Zimbabwe? No, because we have an incompetent leadership. Go across Africa now. You see the changes that are happening in countries across Africa. Go to Kenya now. You'll be surprised.
This gentleman
what's happening in Ethiopia. You'll be surprised. It's all because of the dynamics between It's all because of the growth of China and all these other world powers.
Wow.
But the West, yanga for too long. Actually, the West is taking more money out of Africa than what is putting in. France is taking at least 500 billion out of Africa. And you have an African person saying, "Oh, you can't go to China." Most Africans are happy to come to Europe. We are coming here for trinkets. I have lived here for 20 years, 21 years. Have I achieved anything? Nothing.
Oh, you mean lived here? You mean in UK, in US?
UK.
Right. Okay. Muripa. Right. Okay. Right. Okay. So quickly, let's get Mr. NYONI to respond to that. Right. The gentleman says that the West is taking more out of Africa than it is developing, contrary to China and Russia. Yeah.
Okay. Can I answer him?
Yes, you do.
One, when you look at the gentleman, the last caller, and he is suffering as a Zimbabwean. Is he aware that in 2008, when Mugabe lost an election to Strangirai, Russia is the one, Putin is the one that got Mugabe Zombo? Is he aware of that? If he may answer me, is he aware that Putin is the one who saved Mugabe, the Wagner group in 2008? And he goes on to say, we are suffering because of the West. Is it the West which gave Mugabe weapons to oppress us as Zimbabweans and the Pindule people? Hello? Hello? Oh, it seems I'm lost now. Hello?
Isusu as Africans, we are the ones failing to look on interest.
Yes,
blame Putin. I'm not blaming the West. I'm just saying, could my institutions, equal West, they are not favorable for Africans. Makanzwa, the Kenyan president, Ruto, achitaura kuti isusu ma-Africans tikatora loan, we are paying 8 times more than the rest of the world.
Is it possible to take a loan in China?
IMF is controlled by the West, and you still think the West is better. It's not. We need to look after our own interests. My incompetent leaders, when I'm Gabi, when I'm Mnangagwa, we should remove it. We should remove them.
Let's
take it upon ourselves. Nobody's gonna save you the West or the East. But at the moment, the fact is we are doing more business with the East. And the East is the biggest.
How do you remove Mugabe? How do you remove Mnangagwa when they are given powerful weapons by Russia? Are you not contradicting yourself?
You can't. That's what I'm telling you. You can't play. It's like the West. Whenever governments are one of it. Protect their interests.
My default.
That's not a detriment to remove my dictators. Dictators will always be powerful and will always have weapons. But we can't put that as an obstruction to justice. You can't.
Right.
The despots of Africa. How do we take them out when they are being armed by Russia? How do we take them out?
So how did you?
When Russia is giving them
the liberation movement. Let me give you an example. South Africa was supported by England and America. Apartheid. They supported those things, right? But how did we attain our independence? Answer my simple question is: you are saying Zimbabweans are oppressed by despotic Mnangagwa in ZANU-PF, and Putin, whom you are supporting, is the one who is arming Mnangagwa. Can you answer that question? How do we go about that? The thing is, your question is not factual. There is no evidence that Putin is arming Mnangagwa.
Let me give you the evidence. Let me give you the evidence. I did it. In 2008, when Mugabe lost an election to Morgan Tsvangirai, kudebheni kwanga kune zvombo zvakademonstratewa nekosatu yekusouth africa kuti zvisatumirwe kuzimbabwe zviri kuopresa vana vezimbabwe zvatumirwa naputin. That is the evidence. So Putin is standing.
So you are telling me all this time, right? All this time, look at the African leaders who were murdered by the West. More than 10.
Like which leader? Like which one? Which one?
Thomas Sankara.
I don't know, Shamari. You want to do item assumptions, and it. Do you want to assume?
These things, they actually admitted. Thomas Sankara. The people who,
akafura Sankara murungu kuti munumutema. Sankara akafurwa nani?
Sankara akafurwa nema-Americans.
Sankara akafurwa ne-one of his commanders munumutema.
Yeah, but who was behind it?
Okay, do you see now that we are talking of a different issue? Kuti Sankara akauraiwa ne-fellow army commander wake.
Yeah, but you have to understand my proxy wars. These things have been happening. And the West is the leader of proxy wars in Africa, and that is well known.
Shamari, thank you very much. I will not be the noise here. Sankara anakuraiwa nema-Americans, akauraiwa na fellow commander wake.
Well, here we are. Let's hear from the grapher. The grapher is just called in. The grapher, do you want to give us your opinion here? Emmerson Mnangagwa is a mercenary. Scores of war veterans and these are Zimbabwean war veterans have held press conferences in Zimbabwe disclosing for several years. These are unchallenged allegations that the Emmerson Mnangagwa is in fact a Rhodesian mercenary in the category of Philip Chiangwa, and they say, and just using the latest events, the latest in what we have seen here in Russia and Ukraine, Emmerson Mnangagwa fits in the passage of history as the first ever Prigozhin of our time, who was trained by Rhodesian and British mercenaries,
for a mercenary agenda, which even the First Lady Grace Mugabe talked about, that he was about to run over Robert Mugabe and the liberation fighters in 1980. And per his own disclosures as well, that he never bombed anything at all. He never was convicted of bombing anything. And the release that he got from prison over to Zambia was merely on the basis that the crime that he had committed was trivial. Per his own admissions as well, Emerson Mnangagwa was clearly never at any time a crocodile gang leader at any time, or even a member of the crocodile gang. And numerous other sources here, Karen Kazingizi and the like. But the discussion around early this morning is on what is happening in Russia. Vladimir Putin gets the first ever military challenge inside his country. But it's not just a military challenge. It is a leadership challenge at the heart of his legitimacy, even as the president of Russia, where civilians are hailing, they are literally praising a mercenary leader who gets in, who runs into the country, is literally taking over parts of Russia, just like that. When he is driving out after a peace deal, the Russians. They storm the streets. They're even taking selfies with him, and not even a fly is killed. So the discussion is around here, as you can see in the title: Prigozhin, Putin, and Mnangagwa. What is happening? What is likely to be the future then after this? An opinionator here, an analyst, right tonight, this morning, is saying that this is a precursor. What's definitely going to happen is Putin is on his way out, and most likely Mnangagwa is going to be on his way out anytime soon, because chimoto chachona chatotanga. I don't know what this means. I don't know how you see this, Zimbabweans. But let us hear your views. Keep the comments coming. Martha Takwara says, you get angry when someone tables information to cover up for the president. Please, let's open our eyes. Someone is saying there's deliberate distortion of facts to promote a false narrative, extrapolation of events, trying to create false narrative. Which false narrative here are we talking about? Which the chipichiri false chataura, or even, let me just use my own words here. Chandataura inini chawao shawanzwa so far. You have here Mnangagwa's own biography. Ichitaura ega biography yake iye inotaura kuti hapana kana chinhu one chaakabhomba, nothing that he ever bombed. And the disclosures by Mnangagwa himself contradicting everything else that he sold to Zimbabweans for over 4 years, for decades, right? They link in to the perfect description of Zimbabwe's Prigozhin, or Africa's Prigozhin, Emerson Mnangagwa, right? Yeah. So the grapher. Let's hear your views here. Do you see this as as the end of Putin and the end of Mnangagwa? And I'm going to ask the same question to Exentius. We're going to be shutting down in about 5 minutes. I just had to stretch a bit so people could talk. But let me hear your views. Gracia, would you like to shorten it? And then we can move straight up to shorten it to a minute if you can, please. And then we get to Extensius. Thank you.
Bishop, how are you, Simba? How are you?
Fine, thank you very much. Good morning to you.
I'm good. You see, whatever is happening, it seems like it's just a wake-up call. Because those comrades who think that, like, they're untouchable, like the likes of Putin, Mnangagwa, and what's the name? This one of your Wearing 7, what. You see, these comrades, the problem with them, they always think that they're untouchable. And since that Putin is on their side, most of them now they think like, since now Putin is now a bit of a fool, and because of this, whatever is happening like to him now he's under pressure. There might be a possibility that his way of governance might end up changing, of which it might change the whole picture of all the dictatorship like around the world. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you perfectly, sir.
Hello.
Hold on. I can hear you. Right. Okay. I can hear you perfectly. Let's hear from Exentius. Thank you. Exentius, shoot. Right. I'm also before Accenture speaks here. It seems to me the grapher is coming from a different background. I don't think the grapher is coming from Zimbabwe. I'm not saying that because of his accent, but I think the issues that he talked about they seem to touch on several other people. He's saying, look, this is a wake up call for all my despots, all the military despots across the African continent. You're right. We're going to hear from Exec here. What do you see here? Is Emerson Mnangagwa the first Africa's first Prigozhin? Shoot, Exec.
You see, when it comes to Emerson Mnangagwa, truly speaking, I think there are some facts or some stories about him being a mercenary. Even I'm quite certain even Jacob Zuma at one point he said it. He said something along those lines on this is the guy not to be trusted. I'm quite certain Jacob Zuma once said it. I'm quite certain it's not only Grace Mugabe, but some people have said it is not a guy to be trusted. Look, sometimes let's not even look at the other war veterans or what. Let's look at his behavior and his family in the country right now. Let's look at his current behavior and his family's behavior in the country right now. You can't be in Rolls Royce and Phantom and you'll even listen to sometimes the way he speaks when he's addressing rallies. You can see this guy doesn't care. Because remember, I think let's a little bit, just in a shallow way. A mercenary, you are talking about someone who will do things for money, doesn't take ethics into consideration. That's typical ED. That's typical ED. We could those and Mungandigi. And then now, if we are to look at the case Yanesu, I was extremely shocked because if I'm to tell you guys, I followed that case Kuvamakuseni. I'm in migrant. Kuvamakuseni. When the Wagner group was turning back, I didn't understand a lot of things. Number one, they didn't face any resistance when they crossed into Rostov from Bakhmut. There was no resistance. Akatosvika Braziliano paakatogara with the deputy minister of defense. And I don't understand, like, how does the deputy minister of defense sit down with a guy who wants to take over? So I didn't understand a lot of things. There was no resistance of all. And Putin then offers an address. He then disappears. And this disappears and then all of a sudden, but I think the fight between the two, the Russian army and that guy's the Wagner group, it was going to be a bloodbath. Someone was going to win, but again, okay, there was going to be a better loser. It was going to be a bloodbath. It was going to be an extreme bloodbath.
Mnangagwa. And if you guys in the army, my big shots. And what do we have to do about that? As Zimbabwe, as a nation, and that one person is being supported by whoever is supporting him, is that person a friend or an enemy to the people of Zimbabwe? Whether he wins or loses Ukraine to Zimbabwe, really, it's neither here nor there. But what are your national interests? Pursue those, identify them, and pursue them. You want to develop your country. How? By selling your minerals to China. Is that in the best interest of the country? If so, pursue it. Do that. So, but that is the bone of contention, Baba. Whether Mnangagwa was a Prigozhin, whatever, Zimbabwe does not have identifiable national interest to pursue. This is why you have a problem where in this current war between Russia and Ukraine, half of the guys are saying Ukraine, half of the guys want that, so on and so forth, because we don't have our national interests. If Russia wins, slow down. If Ukraine wins the war, how does that affect? Let's look at that vis-a-vis our national interests. What do we as a nation want in Zimbabwe? I think that is where everything should start from. Let's identify our national interests and let's pursue them relentlessly. Canada with relentlessly. We are taking no prisoners. That is what every country does. That is what Russia does. That is what West does. That is what America does. You cannot be friends. You support someone at war. You go there be friends, but what have they done for you? What are you gaining from that? You come here, you put a mine here, and then build a road here. What kind of business is that? It's nonsense. Thank you, gentlemen.
Right. Wow. Yeah, thank you very much there. I got cut off there and I was just explaining that I do have a first-hand appropriation of Mnangagwa's mercenary history. And I even have emails to this effect directly from his handler, Dan Stannard, and among many other handlers that Rhodesian handlers. There were not many actually. Vangavari Vashoma, they were not that many. But there are also disclosures from the war veterans, if people didn't know, who are alive today, who asked for help from Mnangagwa in 1975 when he was in Zambia. And Mnangagwa told them that he is working for the Rhodesian government. Now, these people, they were shocked. They are shocked even to this day. They are shocked that the same Mnangagwa, who never did anything, he never fired even a single bullet, suddenly is the one that's running the country. How on earth? But Zimbabweans, these are just the discussions around what's happening. The recent development, or the immediate development that where people are seeing in Russia right now, Prigozhin, Putin, and Mnangagwa, and the opinion today by Howard NYONI suggests that this marks the end of both Putin and Emerson Mnangagwa. What do you see? What do you see? Let us hear from the next speaker. I think it's Mata, right? In the order? Is it Mata or it's Munya? No, it's Munya. Munya, please.
Thank you, guys. And then I'm going to second the guy of national interest. Like seriously, guys. We are not like DRC. We are not like Nigeria, where there's Boko Haram, DRC, where there's constant fighting, whereby we can base our national interests on China and Russia. Because those countries, guys, they are warlords. They strike on wars. And we can't fool ourselves and say, we are friends with China, Russia, we are friends. They mean nothing. Food-wise, they mean nothing. Youth-wise, they have nothing. They only provide weapons. And do we really need the weapons? If I rely on countries that has got a history only of war. And all this nonsense of saying, we are going US dollar, we are going to go away with US dollar. There's nothing like that.
We are lying to ourselves. Zimbabwe, a greater, like America says, to make America great again. Let's be Zimbabwe great again. Everything that we focus, let it be of Zimbabwe to be great again. Economically, we can't just keep on supporting countries that only look.
Hello, Simba.
To always think of hope. There's some much better things than look at Ichilema. The guy is progressive. Nyika inoenda mberi mind that open. Because this thing of look what zvana China zvana Russia. Ndekuti kwamakaona imi kune negrini inonzi food aid ndeye kuRussia. Youth izvozvo muzvipatara zvese USA, they are dictators, but to some benefits they look after the health system, they look after the food security. It's far much better than kungoramba takangotarisana nezvinhu zvisina nebasa saka machina anakana production maminerals ese ari kuuya achienda hapana production yaanoona kuti yaitwa neChina. Thank you guys.
Well, thank you very much here. Right. Could we get just thank you very much there, Munya. Let's just hear from Howard NYONI here. And there's a comment that Derek Kanyongo put there and said, just wondering, which and what country did Russia help to build in all Africa? I see skeletons of European industry and road and an infrastructure. And ironically, Russian military were shells. Okay, Russians are as much mercenaries and as Westerners, while Africans, for all, are dummies ruled by incompetence. Okay, Mr. NYONI, shoot.
Yes, I just want to contribute 2 points, and then I leave the. I mean, when you look at the Chinese and the Russians, and the total is of 1980.
We've lost you. Oh, looks like we've lost him. Okay, so let's move to the next speaker. I think is it Mata? Aramata. Aramata. Okay, we've got Aramata. Aramata. Okay, Aramata is no longer responding. Okay, let's move back to Exentius, please.
You know what, guys? People are raising extremely important issues. There's this other guy, I think Munya, who was saying, look, let's look at the national interest, like what do we need as a country. But if we are to really look into our situation, as a country, at the moment, we are extremely divided. Our politics is extremely divided. And that is what has destroyed us. We are going for an election right now. In one or the other way, people like me, I am wishing for a miracle because we have been we've traveled through this road for the past time, now 20 years. The nation, the interest of the country or the interest of the citizens of the country, we all know them in our country. We do not have peace in our country. We are not accommodative in our country. There is no accommodativeness. If either you are with me or you are my enemy. And then you have the US and the Western guys. I think they may be good trading partners, but the problem comes whenever you differ. The moment you start asking questions, you automatically become their enemy. Russia and China, they are looting guys. So I think we are caught in between. both of these guys are not good for us. But also, some are saying we do not need to talk about the Prigozhin. What. Remember, when it comes to leadership, we need to scrutinize our leaders, and we really know who is what and who is which. That one, we cannot run away from it. We cannot run away from scrutinizing our leaders, because we need to know the people that are leading us. Who are they? If they are mercenaries, they are mercenaries. Now, how do you expect the mercenaries to do any good as far as their country is concerned when we know what a mercenary is? So I think we need to solve our politics. If possible, we get ZANU-PF and CCC and whoever away from our politics. We start afresh, because we are caught in between and we are getting old. Thanks.
Thank you very much. We have another caller who was getting cut, and I'm wondering where he has gone to now. We had another caller here who got cut off. But let's bring back our guest, our main guest here.
I don't know, when did you lose me, guys? I just saw that I was talking to myself. I don't know what is happening.
We lost you
Can I
immediately.
go ahead?
We lost you immediately. Maybe your network. Yeah. Please shoot. Your network just shut here. Thank you.
Yeah. So I was just saying, when you look at Russia and China, and let's look at China precisely. The Chinese community, not the government of China, the Chinese community, be it in the UK, in Africa, in South Africa, whether it's in Belgium or in France, when they go to a community, our employee except themselves, go to a Chinese restaurant and see any other nationality working in that restaurant. Why? The Chinese money circulates among the Chinese people. Look at Zimbabwe right now. If the Chinese go to Murewa, see if they employ someone, they will be oppressing that person. They don't know a thing called a human right. Vanochera vosiyama chemicals anosara achiuraya vanhu ivo vaenda kana vatora gold they go.
Yeah, could I ask Mr. NYONI that we don't say the Chinese. If you're going to blame a government, I think it would be acceptable. But I think if you say Chinese, then it's like blanket labeling.
Okay. Let me just put. I think
you
I
see
put
what I
it.
mean. So I hope you understand. It's as if you're attacking human beings.
I get your point. Okay, what I'm saying is, when you look at the government of China and the Russians, they are of no benefit to the indigenous people of Zimbabwe or the indigenous people of Africa in general. The only thing they will do is to arm despots who are oppressing the so-called citizens of nations. The Wagner group being an example. So now, when we look at the Wagner group terrorizing Putin today, are we celebrating? No. But we are seeing a leverage where we say Russia is losing the war. We are not celebrating that Wagner or that guy, Wagner is winning. That's not the issue. We are celebrating the fact that Putin is losing the war. And when Putin loses the war, rogue regimes like Zimbabwe, Eritrea, Uganda, Venezuela, they will get freedom. Do you know, if Chamisa today had a strategy with what is happening in Russia today, Chamisa would take Zimbabwe as easy as A to ABC. Why? Hakuna resistance ichapinda muharare muya nokuti Wagner ndiyo yanga ichiresista. Whenever there was an election in Zimbabwe, the Wagner mercenaries would be in Central African Republic, waiting for the army commanders of Zimbabwe to turn against Mnangagwa or Mugabe, and then the Wagner group will come and deal with the army commanders of Zimbabwe. Even the Wakomana army right now, they have a chance of eliminating Chiwenga and Mnangagwa. Why? Because Putin is gone and his Wagner group. When I say gone, I'm not saying I end as in that I told you. We are just saying the power, the ability for Putin to send an army in Harare now is very limited. The ability for Putin to send an army in Venezuela is very limited. There was an election in Venezuela. What happened? The president of Venezuela was beaten in an election. Akaramba. Who probed him? Wagner Group and Putin. Why? They were getting some things in Venezuela. But now imagine if Putin was not there. Venezuela could be experiencing democracy today. So my point being that kwenda kwa Putin is a good omen for people who are under oppression in Africa. Thank you.
Right. Thank you very much. Right. So here we are, viewers, witnesses. It turns out that this discussion has suddenly become so popular. Prigozhin, Putin, and Mnangagwa. Prigozhin, Putin, and Mnangagwa. Just as people are saying here, Mnangagwa is Africa's first Prigozhin. Who wanted to kill the president in 1980? Right. Who hasn't spoken here? Who hasn't said a word before we shut, folks? Is it Brown? Uchineripi? Uchineripi? Uchineripi, did I lose you? Right, Uchineripi, did I lose you? Right. Or maybe he's busy following Prigozhin now. And was it a good idea? Was it a good idea? Was Prigozhin clever there? Is Prigozhin safer in Belarus rather than Russia? Right, between Russia, where is Prigozhin? Which area is Prigozhin safer, Russia or Belarus? Kwari safe in the kunde kupi Prigozhin. In Russia, if he travels anywhere, it seems, yeah, if we see the way we're seeing on video here, it seems to be a hero everywhere he's going. Right, so between Russia and Belarus, where is Prigozhin safer? Was it a good idea for him to make this move? And also, does this mean the end of Putin and Mnangagwa? Well, in actual fact, this is the revival of Putin. What do you say, Zimbabweans? We're going to need to be shutting, folks. It's a very good morning to you. Let's jump into the news. And by the way, the article, I'm just going to put it here, Zimbabweans, so that people can read. I think it's on the space now. It's been placated. You can actually read it. Right over there. It should be there. So it's titled Prigozhin, Putin and Mnangagwa. Prigozhin, Putin and Mnangagwa. So click it and read it. It's quite a lengthy piece, right? Right. The Duke of Chinemukutu says, there are times when I could poke guys bigger than me trusting my brothers will stand for me if I engage in a fight. Imagine the embarrassment if they are to be beaten first. I feel sorry for African dictators. What is coming their way is bigger than Putin has experienced. Right. So you've got the article there. Click it. Let's read it and let's converge in the news. Jump onto your news network, Zimai, as we proceed, folks. Thank you. By the way, do not forget to follow.
Welcome to Futron Africa, your getaway to cheap, quick, and safe rides with vetted and experienced drivers. Planning on going somewhere? Just download the Futron app for Android from the Google Play Store or the iOS from the Apple App Store. Register and request your rides. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram by choosing your country page, whether it's Futron Africa Botswana, Futron Africa South Africa, Futron Africa Namibia, Futron Africa Zambia, or Futron Africa Zimbabwe, to receive service updates and promotions. Do you own a car? Do you want to make extra money? Do you want to be your own boss? Do you want to work when you want to? Why don't you join the Futron Driver program? We are recruiting drivers across major cities. Download the Futron Driver app for Android from the Google Play Store or for iOS from the Apple App Store and register. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram by choosing your country page, Futron Africa Botswana, Futron Africa South Africa, Futron Africa Namibia, Futron Africa Zambia, or Futron Africa Zimbabwe to view the driver requirements for registration. Registration is free of charge. Download the app and request your ride or join the Futron Driver program and start earning money. Futron Africa. Request, ride, and connect. Welcome to Futron Africa, your getaway to cheap, quick, and safe rides with vetted and experienced drivers. Planning on going somewhere? Just download the Futron app for Android from the Google Play Store or the iOS from the Apple App Store. Register and request your rides. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram by choosing your country page, whether it's Futron Africa Botswana, Futron Africa South Africa, Futron Africa Namibia, Futron Africa Zambia, or Futron Africa Zimbabwe to receive service updates and promotions. Do you own a car? Do you want to make extra money? Do you want to be your own boss? Do you want to work when you want to? Why don't you join the Futron Driver program? We are recruiting drivers across major cities. Download the Futron Driver app for Android from the Google Play Store or for iOS from the Apple App Store and register. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram by choosing your country page, Futron Africa Botswana, Futron Africa South Africa, Futron Africa Namibia, Futron Africa Zambia, or Futron Africa Zimbabwe to view the driver requirements for registration. Registration is free of charge. Download the app and request your ride or join the Futron Driver program and start earning money. Futron Africa. Request, ride, and connect.
Right, the link is below there. Do click the link to follow
Welcome to Futron Africa, your getaway to cheap, quick, and safe rides with vetted and experienced drivers.
Transport
Planning
system
on going somewhere?
that
Just
is
download
changing
the
the face
Futron
of
app
Africa.
for Android from the Google Play Store or the iOS from the Apple App Store. Register and request your rides.